Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. He had an affair during the marriage, claiming to have found true love. I am a tough person, so I also found true love. In the morning, we divorced. As soon as I walked out of the courthouse, I got together with my high school crush, who seemed so far out of reach. I have no regrets. I didn't expect him to treat me this way. We dated from freshman year until graduation, and then 2 years into our jobs. All my firsts were with him. Faced with irrefutable evidence, he was not afraid at all. In the eyes of the law, there has never been a term like leaving with a dutiful heart, he lightly said. Then let's get a divorce. Divorce is definitely happening, but it can't be so nonchalant. What does he think of me? Are these years of affection just over with the word divorce? I lost control, shouting that I would go to the mistress's school to humiliate her. As soon as he heard that I wanted to see the mistress, he hit me. The sound of the slap was loud, but the injuries were light, after all just a slap plus a few kicks. In fact, at that moment I didn't feel the pain, only numbness. When a person is extremely angry, the brain shorts out, and you forget how you walked out the door and ended up in the car, driving aimlessly through the city. I'm in London. The breeze by the river is chilly. When I reached the parking lot, I stayed there for a long time, feeling a bit more sober. I finally picked up my phone. He had sent me many voice messages. I didn't want to open them. A few people in the high school class group were joking around and recounting our high school days using slang. Jack was the class monitor, also the top student in our class. After completing his bachelor's, master's, and PhD, he was admitted to a famous medical school and stayed in this nationally renowned hospital. Half the girls in our class liked him, and I also had a crush on him. My best friend also had a crush and even confessed, only to be rejected. The reason given was that he didn't like girls with poor grades, and I didn't have very good grades. Our only connection in high school was being classmates and sitting together for a month, but he was very quiet and we didn't have any stories between us. After graduating, we lost touch, and we never exchanged contact information. I admit that there was a moment when I thought about betrayal. Going for a fling with Jack would be a humiliation to my ex-husband, but that thought just flashed briefly. After all, we hadn't seen each other for a long time. 4 years of college plus 2 to 3 years of work. The hospital was not far from the river. Actually, it was late at night and he might not even be working. Even if he was working, I didn't necessarily have to see him for the injury. This is a point that my abusive husband later emphasized repeatedly. Why contact him out of all the doctors? I retaliated, why not? He roared. Why is he working overtime right now? I repeated, why not? And added, let's get divorced. I said it very casually. His expression of anger and helplessness at that moment was truly spectacular. If heaven were to strike with a thunderbolt, it wouldn't happen. If someone were to be struck down, they would have to do it themselves. Back to the point. Anyway, in a moment of impulse, I added his contact information. When my mind was heated, he probably accepted it within 10 minutes, responding with a question mark. I said, I am Mary. He said, I know. Why are you adding me so late? Do you need my help? Perhaps all doctors encounter such situations. I said, I've been abused, injured, and I'm nearby now. I want to go to the hospital to get checked and maybe do a medical examination. Not sure about the procedure, so sorry to disturb you, old classmate. He didn't reply for a long time. I waited a few minutes, seeing no response, wondering if I was being too direct. But I was so heartbroken and angry at that time that I couldn't care about those things and sent a voice message. I forgot what I said, but once I started speaking, I started crying in a grievous tone. The gist of it was that I had been hit, wanted a divorce, and didn't know if going to the hospital could help with the examination. After a few more minutes, he replied, I'm already at the hospital in the emergency department. I've traded shifts with someone, come over. When he examined me, he wore a face mask, showing no expression, only saying, don't provoke the other party next time. Protect yourself. His voice was different from what I remembered in high school. His voice didn't have this much magnetism or calmness. As for whether I was moved at that time, I wasn't. Upon seeing him, I only felt shame. He was the only person I had a crush on during my adolescence, so outstanding. And I looked so wretched, feeling embarrassed, especially regretting contacting him. The examination showed no major issues. A few bruises on my back, swollen knee joints, and a patch of hair was even pulled off, but it didn't amount to a minor injury. This was when I realized that even minor injuries were quite serious. And the domestic violence assessment isn't something the hospital provides. I needed to get a referral from the Women's Federation. He didn't send me back like in novels. There was nothing special. I just took the paperwork and left. Although it was late at night, there were really a lot of patients one after another. A doctor walked in midway and was very surprised to see him, saying, "Why are you working non-stop? Aren't you off today?" I didn't go home. I went to a nearby hotel and sobbed uncontrollably. After my best friend rushed over and scolded the scumbag for surely having an affair in college since he was so smooth, I thought it might be true. But I didn't say anything because deep down, I really didn't want my college experience to be marked by betrayal. My best friend suggested going to teach the mistress a lesson. I said we might as well take both of them down. Late at night, I looked at my phone, and with a glimmer of hope, I opened the scumbag's voice messages. He said I was obsessed with cleanliness, insisting on washing toothbrushes and cups. He said I was boring, going home every day after work. He said I spent money not approving of anything like painting watercolor paintings. He even said my family sold their daughter, asking for an 80,000 yuan betrothal gift. I won't argue about the rest. It's true I received the 80,000 yuan betrothal gift, but I brought 200,000 yuan in dowry plus a house to the marriage. He didn't have a house or a car. I brought my dowry and married him with gentle devotion. The last few lines were more submissive, saying he could change, I should change my temper and not go find the mistress. The mistress is a kid, only 20 years old, still in college, still a child. I grabbed a bottle of liquor. I drank too much in the middle of the night. I insisted on running out in my undershirt and shorts. My best friend couldn't hold me back, saying I walked down the hallway holding the bottle, cursing the entire time. When morning came, I saw a message from Jack. My friend is a lawyer specializing in divorce lawsuits. Very reputable and trustworthy. I've just contacted him for you. You can go consult with him tomorrow to draw up your plans. I was dizzy and replied, "Thank you, but I don't need it for now. My cousin is a lawyer." It really wasn't necessary. My cousin is a lawyer, no need to find him. My best friend leaned over to look at the screen, noticing her insatiable curiosity. But this wasn't the time to ask questions. "Is your cousin a divorce lawyer?" she reminded me. This line struck a chord with me. In my heart, I understood that someone like Jack, a doctor at a big hospital with such a wide social circle in his education, the lawyer he'd recommend would probably be leagues ahead of my cousin. But I felt embarrassed, and it seemed too much trouble to bother an old classmate. On top of that, I felt there was a stirring in my heart. My mind was constantly thinking, why not give it a shot? He's cheap, so why not be shameless as well? After all, Jack was single. This thought kept resurfacing. Whereas in the past I would have been embarrassed, at that moment I felt redeemed. I couldn't describe the feeling that came over me, as though even if it were just fantasy, it could still comfort me in some way. Both hating and hurting, wanting retribution, uncertain how to do it. My husband's mother sent a voice message that nearly sent me into a rage. Even if a couple quarrels, they should control themselves. How did she let her son end up like that? You're a university graduate too. Why aren't you more sensible? Are you fit to be someone's wife? I trembled with anger and immediately opened the conversation with Jack. He replied, "Having your cousin as a lawyer is the best. I will help you out as much as possible in the lawsuit. All the best." Of course, I didn't blame Jack. He had already done enough. But life experiences come by gradual or sudden realizations. Somehow at that moment, I had a sudden realization that no one in this world can redeem themselves. My mother was right. Women can only rely on themselves. I didn't know where I found the strength and energy, but from that morning onwards, I never cried again because of his infidelity. I bought 3 voice recorders and even searched for spy equipment to no avail. I had evidence of his affair. In the midst of our struggle, he smashed the phone with the proof on it. Contacting the mistress wasn't solely for the divorce lawsuit. It was also about what the scumbag said. How can a child like the mistress even dare to play games with me? I had seen videos about dealing with infidelity, knowing that collecting evidence wouldn't harm the other party financially, but it would bring moral condemnation upon them. At the very least, when the public opinion war broke out, in the end I'd have something to show that I was the one who was wronged first. I also checked the mistress's school, But unfortunately, I didn't know anyone there. However, a helpless dependent college student like her wouldn't be able to escape. I contacted my cousin again. This guy wasn't a divorce lawyer, but he recommended someone decent. They wouldn't be as powerful as Jack's recommendation, but they'd suffice. Not everyone had such strong connections as he did, but he also had experience with numerous lawsuits. Women, have to rely on themselves. I looked at my phone background. The screensaver was of my mother, who passed away shortly after my marriage. My father and she divorced early on, abandoning me. Fatherless, motherless, childless, what am I afraid of? I made up my mind. I had to hold on to my money, tear it all to the end. Worst case scenario, I'd move to a different city. Do you have that friend from college? Let's go find the mistress, I asked my best friend. She didn't. She just kept searching the school's phone number online. As she searched, she started crying. I knew why she was crying. Growing up together, she understood me the best. My fervent love was wholeheartedly given to him. This rotten man, has he lost his humanity? Even without parents or a family, why does his whole family abuse you? She saw the screensaver of my mom's photo and immediately broke down. My best friend was really angry to the point where she said my heart was consumed by a dog not covered in shit. She urged me to eat more, accumulate enough anger, and build up my strength so we could go to the university of the mistress. Come on, I'm going to take the initiative. Forget about the proper wife not seeing the mistress, being genteel and waiting to confront her in court. I needed to take matters into my own hands. As I was about to leave, I glanced at my phone. Jack had sent another message. However, my lawyer friend is my dad's old comrade. I've already arranged to meet. It wouldn't hurt to ask. If you're free this afternoon, I'll pick you up. Their chat history included 2 photos taken by the lake at the school. Both captured them kissing. Both photos were taken at a self-portrait angle, the intimacy evident. The photos were sent to my husband by the girl with a message included. Are you still intimate with? We haven't been intimate for a long time. Let's not mention that person. It's disgusting. At that moment, the person they referred to was standing by the lake where they took their photos. I walked towards the same spot where their first intimate interaction occurred, behind the lake in the woods. In those woods, there wasn't a single spot suitable for anything intimate to occur. How could they do such things there? I was puzzled and turned to my best friend for answers, but she couldn't speak, nor could she meet my gaze. In their chat records, the mistress mentioned that it was her first time, and my husband's reply was simple, an emoji of a hug and a heart. The next message was for the next morning at 7:30. He sent a hotel location, and she replied with a simple okay. So what kind of first time really happened in those woods? I couldn't quite understand. I thought I was calm because when I left those woods I didn't cry or even take a deep breath. But my best friend said that at that moment, my face was a shade of liver red, as if being strangled with a rope. I rolled up my sleeves. I wasn't going to let that wretched woman off easy. I knew that some would look down on me and question why I bothered confronting the mistress. Even looking at her was elevating her, let alone resorting to violence. But sometimes you just need to face the music. I didn't have much to lose and wasn't that noble anyway? I went there to question her, and if she cooperated, I would just slap her a few times, demand back all the money my husband spent on her, and inform her parents in school. If she played games with me, then besides the slaps it wouldn't be as simple as that anymore. Is fighting the mistress useless? How is it useless? At the very least, it would be a catharsis. I rolled up my sleeves and headed towards their dormitory. My best friend suddenly perked up when she saw me heading there. She was 1.75 meters tall, grew up in the South, but went back to her hometown every holiday. According to her, once she was back in the South, there was never any physical violence involved in her fights. She had been yearning for a physical altercation for a long time. No, she meant she had been yearning for a brawl. With long legs that moved faster than mine, she sprinted ahead while I, at 1.62 meters, struggled to keep up. Don't beat her to death, I cautioned her. I couldn't afford to land us in trouble. It wouldn't be worth it. Don't maim her, I cautioned again. The woman in the photo had a delicate frame similar to mine, and I felt like my best friend could handle slapping her around. In high school, my best friend was the champion of the women's shot put team. Let me finish what I have to say first before you act. I kept repeating. Looking back, I shouldn't have brought her. As soon as we reached the mistress's dormitory, my best friend went completely off script, forgetting all my instructions. To say the least, anyone who witnessed what my best friend did would be shocked. Before I could come to my senses, she had already pulled the mistress's hair violently. I had never been in a fight before, and the scene was nothing like what I had imagined from TV shows or movies, where there's a lot of hair pulling and screaming. Without even seeing clearly, my best friend managed to pull out a handful of the mistress's hair in a split second, leaving her completely bald in that spot. She achieved that feat in an instant. I was genuinely scared. At that moment, I feared that my best friend's brute strength might actually scalp the mistress. That would have been disastrous and could have led to legal consequences. I had prepared my lines and arguments, but they were all rendered useless. I didn't end up fighting the mistress, but instead I instinctively stopped my best friend and got elbowed in the process. It was all chaos. There were 2 other students in the room, but they didn't join the fight. One ran out to make a call while the other just shouted. The mistress remained silent the entire time, and I could tell she had seen the photos of me. Her face turned pale as soon as she saw me. Later, my best friend told me my fighting skills were lacking and that scalping someone was just child's play. There was no need to fear legal consequences as it was all standard procedure. She expressed her regret for not being rougher, as her skills had deteriorated since she stopped practicing shot put. I broke 3 fingernails in the scuffle, and she complimented me on having them beautifully done. She even praised me for being kind and gentle, which led her to forgive me. The incident raised alarm with their class teacher and alerted the school. This was the outcome I wanted. I wanted to make it public knowledge to shame students who weren't focused on their studies and ended up in bed with someone else's spouse. Moreover, I wanted to see if my despicable husband would come to her defense. After all, I was the one who had physically confronted her. Here we go, another piece of evidence is added. If he doesn't show up, that's fine. The school will handle it, inform the parents, and I want every penny my husband spent on her. From a cup of milk tea to expensive bags and hotel bills. Sister, I'm sorry. The mistress suddenly kneeled down, terrified that her parents would find out about all this. She even threatened to jump off the building. When you first see the mistress in such a state, you are supposed to feel overwhelming anger, or so they say in books. Strangely, I didn't feel that. Peculiarly, she didn't look as good as she did in the photos. That was my genuine initial reaction. I had only seen the 2 photos taken by the lake, and she didn't quite match what I saw. It dawned on me that there must have been numerous other photos taken with her selecting the best angle to send to him. It made sense. Why else would they look so intimate in the photos? Given my understanding of that scoundrel of a man, even when being intimate, he kept his hands innocent on the girl's waist. Hay must have rushed to the hotel. Everything finally fell into place. The details I couldn't comprehend before started making sense. I wasn't angry at that moment, but rather in a state of solving a mystery. I thought those fragmented images were just fancy camera work from TV dramas, but living it turned out to be a different story. $268 hotel expenses. An hour and a half later, $36.50 pharmacy expenses. The cost of a contraceptive pill. They were getting intimate by the lake, playing around, so they even took contraceptive pills. On the day those photos were sent, which date was it again? The 19th. That day I was at the hospital looking after my sister-in-law's child who was admitted with pneumonia. He was just 2 years old, and his high fever of 40 degrees was really frightening. Unresolved details started making sense to me, connecting them together. I had a sudden realization. While I wasn't angry at that moment, I felt like I was solving a mystery. But when she called me sister and threatened to jump off the building, it triggered me instantly. In their conversations, the mistress referred to me as sister every time. Would sister get upset? This tastes good. Should I pack some for sister to try? And the most revolting, am I sweeter or is sister sweeter? How could she dare to discuss me in front of her? I hadn't even brought up that account yet, and she had the audacity to call me that to my face. I went crazy, scratching her furiously, my head buzzing. My best friend and I both rushed at her, each pulling her on a different side. What kind of act was she pulling in front of me? How dare she threaten to jump off a building in front of me? I had never lost control like that before. Screeching as I grabbed her hair and pulled to the left. The left side was farther from the window, and I wouldn't let her jump. Jump? You want to jump? Go ahead. I roared while my best friend pulled towards the right side. The right side was right next to the window, ready to push her out. The two of us, one in one direction and one in the other. A silent but shared understanding. My best friend's strength outmatched mine, and within minutes she had pulled the mistress towards the window. Her actions woke me up from my trance, and I had no intention for the mistress to die. I was there for justice. Ignoring the risk of her scalp being ripped off, I grabbed her hair tightly, pulling her back with all my might. We couldn't let this escalate into something fatal. Unfortunately, my feeble strength was no match for my best friend's, a 1.75-meter tall powerhouse. She even had the capacity to use her free hand to push away the teacher who intervened. The mistress's head bumped against the window. You want to jump?
Fine. Jump.
My best friend continued pulling her hair in her arm, gritting her teeth as she tried to push her out. Unexpectedly, the very same mistress who was threatening to jump moments ago was now clinging onto a nearby table leg, crying and begging for help. She wouldn't jump anymore. The facade had crumbled. She wants to jump off a building? Then let her jump. How can this kind of shameless act really lead to jumping off a building? My best friend later shared her experiences with me, rolling her eyes as she spoke. It is said that among friends there must be a doctor, a lawyer, but in my opinion, the most essential friends one cannot live without in life are those with a fighting spirit. The teacher was scared, trying to advise, "Let's talk things out." My best friend swiftly slapped me and said, "Did you hear what the teacher said? Speak nicely. Confess." The teacher became even more anxious and said, "This is a school. No violence." My best friend slapped again. "Did you hear what the teacher said? This is a school. What did you learn?" The scene was chaotic, to say the least. But amidst the chaos there was order, and the result was commendable. The other woman was unharmed, but her thick hair was torn out, though it would not constitute a physical injury even if reported to the police. As I left the teacher's office, I saw her crying while texting on her phone. From a distance I could see his profile picture. It was my husband. We spent nearly 2 hours in the teacher's office presenting facts, evidence, and adding a bit of well-timed rhythmic flair. The school agreed to my 2 demands. First, disciplining the other woman for indecent behavior. Second, the school would step in and call her parents to come for a meeting as it involved marital property issues. As soon as I left the school building, the scumbag called, yelling right from the start. I hung up. He called again, continuing to yell. I hung up again. After a few minutes, he called again, finally realizing that yelling was useless and started talking to me calmly. "Don't hang up. Let me say a few words. Why did you go to see her?" he asked. "If you can sleep with her, can't I go see her?" I retorted. With many students on the road, I didn't want to spoil their ears with our conversation, so I quickly headed towards the less crowded back hill. After taking a few steps, I stopped. That back hill was where they had their first encounter. So I turned around, avoiding the ominous place. Looking around, there were students everywhere. With the vastness of the sky and earth, surprisingly, there was no place for me to hide. My body inexplicably began sweating in waves. My hand holding the phone was shaking violently. "This is my fault. I've agreed to a divorce. What else do you want from me?" he said. I coldly chuckled without saying a word. "Look at yourself. Going to hit a young girl? Is this how an intellectual behaves? This is vulgar behavior. Maintain your composure. Let's part ways amicably. Are you not at fault at all?" Seeing my silence, he started lecturing me again. He always liked to lecture me. In the past, I would smile and listen to his advice, not finding it annoying at all, only thinking he was very knowledgeable. Sometimes he would talk about things I already knew and even get them wrong, but I wouldn't correct him. He was my only man and I just loved seeing him. Happy I believed everything he said, but not anymore. The speakerphone button on my phone was pressed, with 3 voice recorders turned on nearby. While the phone could also record, it's better to be cautious and have multiple backups. My trust in him was shattered, and so was the relationship. On the screen, my late mother's picture was smiling at me. "Mom, I will stand on my own feet." "Let's not talk about this," I interrupted him. "You spent money on her that belongs to our marriage. I am just here to claim what is rightfully mine." "Claim what?" Do you have the right to hit her? He yelled. Laughable. I thought you were rational, but your guard is down when it comes to that other woman. Your guard is down when it comes to her. As your husband, do you have the right to sleep with another woman? I countered. I remained calm, not yelling. Mom, I will protect myself, I kept repeating in my mind. My hand was shaking, but my voice was steady. Mom, I'm doing great, right? There was silence on the other end of the call. After a few seconds, he said, I did not cheat. Then he hastily hung up. I knew he sensed the separation and the absolute determination and resentment emanating from me. He started being cautious around me, no longer daring to shout at me recklessly. A few students walked by in the distance, some couples walking hand in hand, reminding me of the time when we two were like that in university and like half a year ago when he and I were wandering together. I bought a pack of cigarettes. I smoked for the first time, didn't choke, and inhaled deeply, then exhaled through my nostrils. I took another deep drag, going a quarter of the way down. My best friend had lost her arrogance from when she fought the other woman, and seeing me like this, she sat beside me on the curb, silent, just sneaking glances at me. He once said he couldn't stand women who smoke. Lighting 3 cigarettes in a row, taking several puffs without choking at all. It seemed that I had a talent for doing something that he despised. Am I a shrew? I asked. A despicable man dared to say, You are a shrew. You went to hit the other woman. My best friend spoke resolutely at what she perceived was an injustice. We also spoke like this in the teacher's office. In truth, I knew deep down that we were the ones who struck first. The other woman received the brunt of it. Yes, she initiated the physical confrontation, and I only retaliated. I nodded in agreement. The 3 burning cigarette butts felt like my love, the red embers seeming to mock me, like the red lips of a fox. Suddenly stung. My mind snapped, and I clenched my hand into a fist and slammed it down on one of the smoldering cigarette butts. Are you crazy? My best friend exclaimed, pushing me away. On the 19th in the afternoon, during the hour when they were in a hotel room, I was in the hospital holding my nephew, calling him twice, and he answered both times. The first call, he was in a hurry and quickly hung up. The second call, he started talking more than usual, asking various questions, breathing heavily at times. I thought he was in a rush, and the hospital was quite noisy. I should have listened carefully to figure out if their actions were frantic. As I said this, I couldn't continue. I didn't understand. Why did he do this? If you want to cheat, then cheat. Why did you answer my call while doing that with someone else? These years, our relationship was good. We rarely argued. Does he despise me so much, detesting me to the point of answering my call for several minutes? I just don't understand. I really want to cry, but I can't. My body was feeling increasingly uncomfortable, waves of nausea rolling over me. The remaining 2 cigarette butts were glowing red. I held my hand in a loose fist and slowly pressed down on them, crushing them out, pressing them into the soil. This time my best friend didn't stop me. She just stood up and paced behind me. I opened my fist, using my index finger to crush the last trace of red ember that snuck out. Did it hurt? Of course it hurt. But this physical pain could mask the pain in my heart, giving me a strange sense of relief. After extinguishing them, I suddenly burped. The nausea that had risen to my throat reduced significantly. They hit me first and I just fought back. This time when I said they, I meant both of them. He and she were a unit, a team. But I wasn't. The phone rang. Where are you? I've scheduled a meeting with the lawyer at 3. He had some last-minute issues, so it's moved half an hour earlier. I'm near the school. I'm nearby too. I'll come to pick you up. 2 minutes later I replied. Okay. My car was actually parked not far away. I didn't need him to pick me up. When Jack came over I was lost in thought, and when he arrived in front of me and called my name, I snapped out of it. In a white shirt and black trousers, he seemed like he was going to an important place. Tall, 6 feet 3 inches, clean and mature. Very different from our high school days. Attractive and composed. And me looking exhausted like a withered autumn leaf, weary and bitter. My best friend, on the other hand, quickly regained her vitality, chatting cheerfully with Jack. Jack asked, What are you guys doing here? My friend responded, Just hanging out. I said, Dealing with the other woman. My friend nudged me with her elbow. You can't say it's about the other woman. That's not something intellectuals or cultured people do. Jack was the high school heartthrob. I didn't care. Love is over. No enthusiasm left. I turned my head away, not looking at Jack's expression. My friend immediately changed the subject, chatting for a few more minutes before Jack pointed to his car. We were running out of time, so we had to get to the law firm. Following his gaze, I saw a black car parked around the corner, the logo shining brightly. Such an expensive car. Is a third-tier hospital surgeon really this wealthy? Just as we reached his car, my friend suddenly doubled over, clutching her stomach, screaming in pain as if she were about to give birth in a TV drama. I was terrified, thinking she got hurt during the... She said, "I have a stomachache." I rummaged through my bag, retrieved some tissue, and she swiftly ran off. I said, "Hurry up, we'll wait for you." All right. Truly gifted, having stomach issues and still able to run that fast. As we walked to the car, I hesitated for a moment, placing my hand on the back door of the car. Even though he was an old classmate, he was still a single man, and I was a soon-to-be divorced woman. Sitting in the front passenger seat would have seemed a bit too ambiguous, especially in Jack's car. In reality, it was just an excuse. The truth was my mind was consumed with ugly thoughts of revenge. These shallow, brainless, and low-level thoughts kept swirling in my mind, unable to shake them off, along with the details of his affair, scenes of him entangled with her. It tore me apart. Why was I like this? I dared not sit in the front passenger seat, nor should I, especially in Jack's car. He was the only person I ever had a crush on, the male god of my 3 years in high school, a target of revenge who turned out to be even more outstanding than I imagined. What was wrong with him to be taken advantage of by someone like me? Sitting in the passenger seat, he said, "I need to treat the burn on the back of your hand." Jack pulled out a first aid kit from the trunk. I was surprised and looked down. The back of my hand, burned by a cigarette, had some dirt on it. If you didn't look closely, you wouldn't even notice. Was his observation ability that strong? "Follow the doctor's orders," he said when he saw I didn't move, getting serious. It's amazing how patients like me. I thought. I sat in the passenger seat. As he treated the wound, his hand directly touched mine. His hand was warm, his movements gentle, but there was no hint of anything ambiguous. He was very professional. It hurt a bit and I gritted my teeth. There was also a wound on my neck, probably scratched in the chaos just now, as there were 2 long marks. He glanced at it and succinctly said, "Pull your collar down, revealing your left shoulder." I felt a bit embarrassed, but following the doctor's advice, I revealed everything. "Just treat the back of the neck and shoulder," he said lightly. After applying the medication, I continued to pull my clothes down a bit and let the medicine dry, feeling a bit shy. Last night, when I was beaten up by a scumbag and went to the hospital, he had seen my back, thighs, and waist, which was a large area. But that was the hospital and this was inside the car. After applying the medicine, I continued to pull down my clothes a bit and wait for the medicine to dry. I sneaked a peek at Jack and saw him quickly pack up the first aid kit and put it in the back seat. My ears turned red, but he looked very calm. So calm that I thought his ears might be hot from inside the car. I turned my head, looked out the window, and quietly waited for my girlfriend to come, but I was also afraid of her arrival. He's here, seeing me revealing half of my shoulder, and who knows what he'll think. A video played from behind and he handed me his phone. In the video, there was a fight going on in a foreign parliament, a collection of fights. These legendary social elites, dressed in suits and leather shoes, were fighting more fiercely than fishwives in the parliament. He didn't say anything, but I understood what he meant. He didn't think it was improper for me to go and confront the other woman, nor did he think it would harm the reputation of intellectuals. He used the video to tell me that these MPs were brawling in public, so what if an ordinary person like me gets into a fight? At that moment I felt a little sweet. It was a genuine sweetness from the lips to the heart. This behavior can't happen again. He pointed to the back of my hand, looking serious. I nodded. Suddenly, I felt a little embarrassed and turned my head back to look out the window. My friend, why hasn't she come yet? I faintly felt something was wrong. Before Jack arrived, she wanted to take my car and drive away, which I didn't agree with. We had to go to the law firm together. Otherwise, it would seem inappropriate with just Jack and me. Not that something would happen, but I was worried that if the divorce lawsuit started, the scumbag would come looking for surveillance footage, and seeing me and Jack leaving alone would be hard to explain. My worry was proven correct and quite foresight because later, the scumbag indeed found the video of us driving away. Seeing the video, he went nuts. But that's a story for later. I patiently waited in the car for my friend for nearly 20 minutes, but she still hadn't arrived. What if she doesn't listen to me and sneaks away? I quickly picked up my phone and sent her a message to urge her. She replied, "I suddenly have something to do. You guys go ahead first." I was dumbfounded and called her immediately. No answer. I hurriedly messaged her again, trying to explain the situation to her, but she replied, "I took the car keys with me." I checked my bag. Oh my, when did she take my car keys? So let's go first. Jack stepped on the gas and the car drove out. Time was running out and his driving speed was fast and intense but steady. As for the matter of divorce, it's better to consult a lawyer, which can prevent a lot of complications. For example, I couldn't stand the 30-day cooling-off period for a consensual divorce. I smacked my thigh. Let's go to court. But the lawyer told me that litigation divorce was the slowest and most complicated, taking half a year at a minimum and up to a year or two before a successful litigation divorce. Usually, it takes between 6 and 15 months. A year or two. It only takes a few minutes to get married, but a year or two for a divorce lawsuit. The fastest option was mediated divorce. No need for a lengthy litigation process, no cooling-off period. As long as both parties agreed on divorce, child custody, and property division issues, they could proceed with mediated divorce effective immediately. Clean and clear, each goes their separate ways. Would the court really rule that quickly? Would there be no obstacles? I was a bit worried. I have translated a portion of the text. Let me know if you would like me to continue with the rest. His mother, his 2 uncles, and his sister. He is from the countryside. In their village, if there is discord between husband and wife or conflicts between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, people around would come to mediate. One of the uncles didn't receive much education and used to work in underground water drainage. The other uncle went to school and became the village doctor. I felt very uncomfortable with outsiders meddling in family affairs. I always believed that matters between husband and wife should be resolved between the 2 of us. While a mother-in-law might give advice, it had nothing to do with the younger sister-in-law and uncles. Out of politeness, I took a seat on the sofa opposite them. The mother-in-law spoke first, complaining that our relationship was not good, that I had a bad temper, was too busy with work, and couldn't conceive a child. She even brought up the matter of her son cheating. She insinuated that her son had a close relationship with a female friend, and blamed me for causing chaos in their lives. It was all my fault implicitly. I remained silent. The younger sister-in-law interjected, suggesting I see a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner and try some herbs, as her friend got pregnant after a few months. It implied that I was infertile. I glared at the younger sister-in-law. I had always been very kind to her. When she got pregnant, they didn't conduct many prenatal checkups to save money, but I specifically gave her money to go to the hospital for checkups. But as soon as a problem arose, they immediately banded together and treated me like an outsider. What right do you have to speak in this matter? I said. Besides, I am kind to you because you are his sister. Otherwise, what are you to me? She had never seen this side of me before and quickly fell silent. He began to elaborate. He said I had a bad temper, was busy with work, and didn't do well in household chores. He gave a long list of examples all revolving around these 3 points. Although he didn't mention his own cheating, all the examples suggested that cheating was somehow justifiable. After he finished speaking, I looked at the 2 uncles. The uncle rubbed his nose and glanced at me. Since they came, they must have known about his infidelity. They didn't come to mediate just to follow the usual customs and clear things up, as they still needed to maintain their reputation in the village. The uncle cleared his throat twice and said, "When a couple's relationship is strained, both parties need to reflect on it." I looked at the other uncle. The uncle who worked in underground water drainage, with skin darkened by years of exposure to the wind and sun, looked uncomfortable sitting in my urban house. He didn't completely sit down, just perched halfway on the sofa. When he noticed me looking at him, he instinctively rolled up his sleeves. He didn't say anything. "Are you done speaking? Can I say something now?" I spoke up, looking at the 2 uncles. I took out the thick chat logs that I had just printed according to the lawyer's advice from my bag, and threw them on the coffee table. The picture of them kissing by the lake was at the top of the documents, followed by A4-size printed copies. The lawyer advised that using photos would suffice, but for private confrontations, A4 size was more effective, colored, large, and sharp. It was all about the mindset. As expected, his mother and younger sister exploded in anger. The younger sister's face turned red as she frantically gathered the photos. His mother stood up in a fury and began scolding me for my various shortcomings. The scumbag, on the other hand, looked at me in disbelief. He knew I had chat records, but he was shocked to see how well organized they were. Text records, image records, all neatly categorized, plus these A4 colored photos. It was evident that I came prepared. For so many years, he enjoyed my admiration and adoration, and even after his infidelity was exposed, he could still ignore my rage and anger. He was not accustomed to my calm demeanor. The uncle cleared his throat again, reiterating the need for both parties to reflect on the strained relationship. I took a deep breath. As the evidence was presented and they had finished speaking, I couldn't bear it any longer. I rolled up my sleeves. At that moment, the uncle did the same and glanced at me. I felt a bit nervous. I had only met these two uncles 4 or 5 times in total, twice before getting married and twice during the new year in the 2 years after marriage. I hadn't spoken much with the other uncle who had some education. Each time he would just smoke and nod in acknowledgement when I greeted him before averting his gaze elsewhere. I was from a different world than him. I was a bit afraid. The uncle bent down, picked up the crumpled, colorful printed photos, furrowed his brows as he looked at them, then glanced at the scumbag. "You shouldn't behave like this," he said. As soon as these words were spoken, the scumbag's angry expression faltered. "Your father wouldn't behave this way. You shouldn't either. You can't treat people like this, and there's no way you should act this disrespectful to elders," the elder uncle added. His mother's face turned pale. The uncle threw the photos into the trash bin, pointing a finger at the scumbag. "This kind of person." The term person he used differed from what they usually referred to. It usually meant a woman who is not faithful or of questionable character in the village. They would often say things like, "That person is cheap, divorced 3 times. Can this person even bear children?" Very chauvinistic. Normally, I couldn't stand to listen to such talk, but at that moment I found it satisfying. Can someone like this even go to college? The uncle stared at the trash bin in shock and disbelief. Then he rolled up his sleeves again. "She has no parents," she followed. "You can't treat her like this. You shouldn't bully her. Her mother just passed away a year ago and you do this? You bully her like this?" He never looked at me throughout, just like he did during the new year, not meeting my eyes. Upon hearing this, I stood up and went to the bathroom, making sure to grab my bag. Even though the documents were just copies, they were crucial. I acted calm and composed. After entering the bathroom and closing the door, I took deep breaths to maintain my composure and logic. But the tears couldn't be held back, flowing uncontrollably. I didn't want to cry. They had all just said such things about me, him, his mother, and his younger sister for so long. Many of the examples he cited I could have rebutted. I do have some shortcomings, as his mother pointed out, but he also has faults. I felt so wrong, but I held it all in. Despite feeling so aggrieved and angry, I did not cry. Tears are truly the most uncontrollable thing in the world. Like a flood, once it breaches the dam, it can't be controlled. With a thud, I slumped down on the bathroom floor, wailing uncontrollably. I wasn't crying because of the scumbag. I cried because someone finally spoke the truth. After crying for about 10 minutes, I gathered myself and came out. When I emerged, both uncles had stood up. The uncle had given a final verdict on the matter. The scumbag was at fault. He had disappointed me and mistreated me. With the issue resolved, they were ready to leave. After they reached the door, the uncle glanced at me, cleared his throat, then turned his head to signal the others to leave as well. His mother and younger sister then rose, following them to the door. "Thank you, uncle," I said, looking at the back of his head. The uncle didn't turn back. He just opened the door and walked out. I had cried hard in the bathroom. My throat was a bit hoarse and my voice was low. I didn't know if the uncle had heard me. There would still be matters to settle regarding the divorce and the house, But the uncles wouldn't interfere anymore. We had only met a few times, and after the divorce we would likely never see each other again. I owed him a thank you. After they left, I felt exhausted. I turned to the scumbag in the kitchen. "Can we talk properly?" he asked, a suppressed anger in his tone. I nodded, pulling out an agreement from my bag. His expression fell. These past few days since I discovered his infidelity, every time we tried to talk, I would lose control. I would either cry or explode in rage, talking about that other woman, bringing up our past. It was heart-wrenching. This was the first time that I sat down calmly and placed the agreement on the coffee table. At the lawyer's office, I asked a question. After being caught cheating, did he not show any remorse or regret throughout? It was clearly his fault, yet at the end he acted as if I had forced him into it. In his eyes, was I really so terrible? Was I not worth any sentiment? This was my biggest mystery, one that I couldn't fathom no matter how much I tried. The lawyer told me that such situations were common in divorce cases. The reason was simple: because the evidence was irrefutable. If I couldn't present concrete evidence but only had suspicions, men who didn't want a divorce would usually explode in anger and claim that I was overthinking it. They would counter-accuse me, and the matter would be dropped. If evidence was presented but not strong enough, like slight flirtatious conversations, then men would first pretend to be angry to prove their innocence. However, they would later reflect and apologize, saying it was just a moment of emotional infidelity, and swearing it wouldn't happen again, making a big deal out of it. But I was different. My execution was too thorough, and within a day or two, I had dug out irrefutable evidence. Kissing photos, hotel expenditures, and so on. In such circumstances, most men like him would choose to elevate themselves morally to minimize the losses in the divorce proceedings, a proportion of up to 89%. Indeed, the lawyer was renowned for his experience. To me, the heart-wrenching things were now data for him. It turns out I wasn't as vile in his eyes, but rather his selfishness ruled his actions. I realized something. No matter if it makes sense or not, I will continue to move forward in the right direction. The right direction to take surely is divorce. Let's not talk about relationships anymore, not dwell on the past, and not inquire about his future. Let's talk about money. But what I didn't expect was that as I calmed down and he saw the professional agreement, he became agitated. He understood that my previous loss of control was because there were still feelings, and now that I was calm, it was because there were no feelings left. Shock and sadness appeared on his face. But even though he understood, he lacked enough wisdom. The next moment, he actually thought I had also been unfaithful. How could a woman who had loved him for 6 years face this so calmly? "Where did you find this lawyer?" He flipped through the agreement angrily. "You are quite capable, huh? Just yesterday you were crying. Today you've prepared this professional agreement." He glared at me. "Why should we split 3-7? He threw the agreement back on the coffee table. My bottom line was 4-6, but negotiations had to be done layer by layer. "Because you betrayed the marriage," I said as I took out another document and placed it on the table, detailing the mediation process and things needed for court mediation. Going through court mediation is the quickest way to divorce. Prepare your documents according to this so you won't be left with nothing, I said firmly. Thick agreements, one after the other, were laid out in front of him. My determination was also laid out in front of him. You are really ruthless. Were you prepared all along? We've been together for 6 years. In just a few days you've prepared everything, he shouted. As he yelled at me just like I used to yell at him, it was truly a role reversal. The human body is truly a strange construction. I am clearly calm, silently watching him, but my hands are trembling. I squeezed my hands together to calm down a bit. For the following hour and a half of back and forth, I couldn't help but break down once or twice. But he roared more times than I did. These things were not important. In the struggle, I pretended to loosen my stance, changing the agreement to 4-6. According to the law, in cases of infidelity, one cannot walk away scot-free, and only a modest compensation is warranted. Strictly following the law, it amounts to just a few thousand RMB. 4-6 was already good enough. One must face reality. I negotiated well according to what the lawyer had in mind, but there was something completely unexpected. He agreed to the 4-6 split with one condition. Can you not go find her? I know you want to find her parents, he almost pleaded. My mouth twitched uncontrollably. Why? I asked. I truly love her. I'm sorry, I've truly fallen in love with her. She is just a young girl, innocent. She is the first time very precious. I truly love her, he said, his tone as humble as possible. He did not look at me as he spoke, indicating he felt guilty too, but his resolve was firm. I never expected that he actually loved her. I thought it was just a fling. I wanted to say, all my first times were with you, have you forgotten? We've been together since we were 18. Do you not remember? When we were together you had nothing, don't you remember? But I didn't say that, as those words had been said many times during the previous days of turmoil. I nodded. I couldn't show any emotion, so I appeared to have a stern face, but in reality, I wasn't devoid of emotional fluctuations. I just dared not show any expression. I was afraid my tears would fall instantly. This man no longer loved me, yet he ruthlessly hurt me. Stabbing the knife into me was bad enough, but then to remove it and stab again in the name of love with someone else. I couldn't cry. Clearly, the tension in his muscles visibly eased, indicating that he involuntarily let out a sigh of relief. I took out another agreement from my bag, placing it in front of him. Then let's calculate my dowry money. He was clearly taken aback. It's not much, just 200,000. It was left to me by my mom as a token, and your love must be extremely precious, far exceeding 200,000. I wanted to say this sentence especially calmly to match the scene I had rehearsed in my mind before I said it, but every word felt strained. People don't just hit wrong notes when singing. Sometimes when speaking too, the tone is off. My mom said a woman must rely on herself. It's been just over a year since she passed away. I can't fail her. Mom, I can pick it up and I can let it go. I can't wish them well. That would be too phony. But I can promise not to contact her parents. Perhaps seeing that I agreed not to cause trouble with the third party, his mood noticeably improved, and he started to carefully read the agreement. I'm not sure how long he read it, but every minute and every second was torment for me. My heart ached, but my rationality was intact. Once he said he loved her so deeply, it shattered all my illusions and ended all the emotional ties I had with him over the years. In this agreement, the split was clearly outlined as 4-6, and the dowry money was taken separately. It may sound better than many stories where one leaves with nothing, but in reality, there was no provision for leaving with nothing after infidelity. The lawyer told me even if infidelity was proven, it might give some advantage in child custody arrangements, but in terms of money, it would only amount to a modest compensation of a few thousand RMB. Welcome to the real world. Betraying a marriage, you compensate with a few thousand RMB. That's the sum, splitting 4-6 and setting aside the dowry money separately. In a real divorce lawsuit, this kind of ratio was actually quite good. The lawyer had set a trap. When we bought the house, my mom gave 400,000 as we were short on funds. Although there was no written agreement, he knew, and the bank statements could prove it. The lawyer added 2 small clauses. One stating a proportional compensation based on the market price of the house, and another lengthy paragraph which I couldn't remember. In the lawyer's own words, as long as you can get him to sign this agreement bewilderedly, not only will he not take away a single cent, he will owe you 60,000. The lawyer explained, not taking away a single cent and owing me 60,000. Though I still didn't fully understand, it was eye-opening. A good lawyer could cleverly use textual traps to achieve results without bloodshed. I admit I played a little trick and was a bit cunning. After shedding a few tears and having a few hysterical episodes, this was the first time I had played such a trick, and it worked well on him. It wasn't just about being cunning though. After all, some emotions were genuine. It's just that I used reason to manage them. Afraid that I might change my mind, he hurriedly signed the papers, fearing I might back out. How could he continue being with the third party if I changed my mind? I was concerned that this might affect the divorce. The lawyer said that after obtaining the divorce certificate, officially entering the stage of property division, he would discover the nuances of the agreement. It meant there were 2 lawsuits involved. After hearing that the subsequent turmoil wouldn't affect the divorce certificate, I finally felt relieved. It was past 11 p.m. when we finished the discussion, exhausted. He left at 11:10 p.m., and Jack's message arrived at 11:15 p.m. Lawyers are friends. Favors are also hard currency. No need to pay money. Favors are much more than just hard currency. Favors are hard currency, more challenging and precious than money. I owe Jack a huge favor. I did owe Jack a great favor. I just didn't know how to repay it. After a few seconds, he messaged again. I'm downstairs at your place. I suspected he had been waiting there all along. When I sat in the passenger seat, his eyes quickly glanced over the exposed skin as if checking if I had been hit again. The atmosphere felt very strange. How should I put it? I was a woman in the midst of a divorce while he was a single man. Any adult would know that a doctor working in a busy, top-tier hospital wouldn't concern himself with a woman like this for no reason. Just as my thoughts wandered, he interrupted. He didn't say or do anything. He simply turned his head to look at me. When I met his gaze, it lasted just a second or two before he looked away. He just stared quietly ahead into the dark, deserted underground parking lot. After a minute or two, he said, "Take care of yourself. Don't get into any conflicts." I nodded. He added, "Money isn't that important. Life is long. Don't get into conflicts. My phone is on 24/7. Patients can call me anytime." He emphasized not getting into conflicts. When he mentioned patients, he looked at me very seriously. In the end, the divorce proceedings from my perspective went smoothly. After submitting the necessary documents, the court still took some time going through the procedures, and we were asked to pick up the divorce certificate on Friday. The house was packed up, and unwanted items were discarded. By the time my ex-husband realized the issue of property, it was too late. It was written in black and white, signed, and he couldn't retract it. There would surely be some back and forth, but I wasn't afraid. The divorce involving financial matters. The lawyer was very capable. One mustn't be too ruthless. I didn't lose out on the money, so the things I agreed to with him, I would see to it they were done. According to our agreement, I didn't call the parents of the mistress, the third party in the relationship, even though the school tried to contact me several times. I didn't respond. I thought that this matter would just pass, but I didn't expect that he got beaten up. I heard it was because they couldn't reach me, so the mistress's parents were afraid that I would continue to negatively influence their daughter's reputation. So they found him and beat him up. They even broke his nose. This incident happened for real. These people are really something. My best friend called me sounding very excited. He was beaten at his workplace, and I was deeply shocked and regretful. Both of us studied journalism. After graduation, I started working at a television station while he went through a lot to finally land a job at a well-known local news portal. London's media industry is very developed, and this news portal has very high standards. Back then, it was indeed quite a challenge for him to get in, and it was not easy at all. A highly competitive company like that surely wouldn't tolerate such behavior. He might lose his job. Just as I was pondering over this, the phone rang again, and it was the mistress's mother saying they were downstairs at my place and wanted to have a talk. I was genuinely scared. If these people could be so harsh on their former son-in-law, they might do the same to me, especially since I confronted their daughter at the school and ruined her reputation. I had been with him all these years without any other male friends. After much thought, I contacted Jack. Jack is a doctor, very polite but tall at 1.89 meters. He used to be on the basketball and swimming teams in high school. After contacting him, I regretted it. There was a news story about a doctor whose hand was injured by a patient, and he couldn't perform surgeries anymore. I feared the same fate for Jack if they were to harm him. When I called him again to express my concerns, he said he had already arrived and asked me not to be afraid. His voice remained calm. "You did the right thing. If you ever encounter problems, contact me. You handled this situation well." I thought maybe all doctors who perform surgeries at a top-tier hospital are this composed. It was surprising that he could bring this up. To my surprise, the mistress's parents were quite civil in front of me, showing no signs of aggression or anger. They came with the hope of settling the matter concerning their daughter. Despite their daughter's involvement in the breakdown of my marriage, they hoped I would offer her a way out and not escalate the situation further. The crux of their request was for me to prevent the school from taking disciplinary action against her, a demand I didn't agree to. Why shouldn't she face consequences? They proposed that if I could prevent the disciplinary action, they would compensate me financially and asked me to name a price. I coldly smiled, placed the agreement written by my lawyer on the table, and tapped it with my fingers. This is not compensation. It's the joint property of a married couple. Every penny your daughter spent from my ex-husband's account must be returned, including the money spent on contraceptive pills. The elderly couple's faces turned pale instantly, and they looked embarrassed. I remained firm. They alternated between crying and pleading, but I didn't budge. Jack sat at another table, observing quietly. The parents were unaware of his presence, but they didn't resort to violence. Actions have consequences, and expecting a clean slate for their daughter was unrealistic. I didn't demand a public apology or create a scene at their workplace out of goodwill. The disciplinary action and repayment of the money spent by my ex-husband on their daughter were non-negotiable. Otherwise, we would go to court. As I spoke, the mistress's parents' expressions fluctuated between red and white. The lawyer was right. Society condemns such behavior of the mistress, and I wanted her to stand while she was unable to sit or kneel when I demanded, just as she humiliated me. The longer the court battle, the better. As a young girl without honor or dignity, let's see who can endure it. The parents were likely filled with anger, but they didn't assault me. They continued to nod and plead. I was tired of the charade. I stood up and walked away without listening. Jack followed closely. I'm already on leave, let's drive around, he suggested. I nodded. Has the court accepted the case? He asked. Yes, they have approved it, I replied. What about the divorce certificate? We can pick it up on Friday. Perfect, isn't it? He smiled, looking at me. His calm and gentle tone had a hint of mint. The touch of his hand that day lasted only 15 seconds, but it left me sweating profusely and too afraid to move. This divorce period had made me acutely aware of the underlying ambiguity between us, albeit only slightly. We hadn't even dined together privately. Despite being a busy doctor at a prestigious hospital, he had come to my aid during my hectic days. I had some thoughts but was uncertain. As a divorced woman, I didn't dare delve deeper into those thoughts. He had made such a direct move without giving me any time to prepare. My heart raced uncontrollably. The car started driving out of the dim underground garage into the bright sunlight. I had no idea where he was taking me, and I couldn't bring myself to ask, so I sat silently, feeling my heart thumping loudly. Shall we pick up the papers at the court this morning? He asked. When?
10 Uhr morgens.
I'll pick you up at 10:10 at the courthouse entrance, he replied. My heart raced even faster. For the next 2 days I couldn't sleep well, tossing and turning in bed. Before I would cry while packing my things, but now no tears came. I felt like I was moving on too quickly and guilt crept in. However, he didn't contact me either during these days, and I hesitated to reach out to him. So, I went through his social media profiles over and over again. They say doctors are often unfaithful, but then again I was beginning to think. As a divorced woman, maybe it was time to date again. After being genuine in a relationship and still ending up in such a situation, wouldn't I be more cautious this time? I heard he was involved with a doctoral student before, and my friend once confessed her feelings to him, and he said he preferred someone with good academic performance. Those days my mind was exhausted and so was my body. One question lingered in my mind all the time. Wasn't it a bit too fast for me to move on considering my divorce? I felt a sense of guilt. But those days all I could think about was the 15 seconds that he held my hand. I continued to roll around in bed, sometimes reminiscing about my ex-husband for a few seconds and feeling dejected. But in the next moment, I would recall those 15 seconds of him holding my hand. I craved redemption. I was so afraid of divorce before. The mere thought of the divorce certificate used to make me cry. But now all I wished for was for Friday to arrive quickly. When he extended his hand to hold mine, it felt so close. His voice had a hint of peppermint. As we approached the courthouse, I glanced at the parking lot, but I couldn't see his car. When my ex-husband saw me, his eyes lit up. I had dressed up early in the morning, exercised for an hour to reduce swelling, put on light makeup, styled my hair, and wore a new dress. He, on the other hand, didn't pay much attention to me, looking like a fool with his bandaged head. I ignored him. This makeover wasn't for him or Jack. It was for me to ensure a good ending to this chapter of my life. Besides the divorce certificate, there was also an invalidated marriage certificate. The court staff asked if we wanted to keep it as a memento. I shook my head, but my ex-husband nodded. I furrowed my brows, reached out, took the 2 voided certificates and tossed them in the trash. His face darkened. I turned away, feeling a pang of sadness and almost on the verge of tears, but managed to hold them back. As we stepped out of the courthouse, I saw Jack's car in the distance. I strode over and just got into the passenger seat without a word. Jack smiled, pleased that I chose to sit in the front seat. Seeing me with him, my ex-husband's expression changed, and he immediately called my phone. But before I could answer, Jack placed his hand on top of mine, accelerated the car swiftly and smoothly with an air of confidence. My ex-husband's face displayed a range of emotions, leaving me feeling vindicated yet saddened. It was obvious my ex-husband was suspicious upon witnessing the scene. As expected, he tried to find evidence of my affair but only came across surveillance footage of Jack and me leaving a university together. What could that possibly prove? Everyone has old classmates, and besides, that day it was my friend and I who confronted the mistress. He exclaimed. I even found out that you visited him for consultation that night. He presented some consultation records with Jack's signature from that day, showing the effort he put in. What does that mean? He's just an old classmate who became a doctor. My ex-husband completely lost control. Why did you have to find him? There are so many doctors. Why did you have to find him? I smiled but didn't say anything. He completely freaked out. Why was he working overtime on that day? Why? I asked in return. Jack and I didn't have any extramarital affair during our marriage. At most, there were just some fleeting thoughts in our minds, but I just couldn't explain it to him. He was just like when I found out he had an affair, suffering, broken, and the humiliation of being betrayed. I did not have an affair, but he did for sure. Those photos, those chat records, they stabbed me like a knife. I don't know if he and his mistress are truly in love, what their status is, or whether they have broken up or not. That's his future. Just like my future, it has no connection with him anymore. My ex-husband actually came back to me later, drunk, crying like a baby outside my door, saying he was wrong, begging me to reconcile and remarry. I didn't pay any attention to him. Men are like this. They don't know how to cherish what they have when they have it, but they regret it deeply once it's gone. I couldn't be bothered to think whether he missed the once happy marriage or missed the life with a house and a car. That he had or both, I no longer cared. He kept saying, why? Why do I have to leave with nothing and still owe you money? Why? Because you betrayed the marriage. Because I found a good lawyer. He kept crying and screaming, disturbing the neighbors. You must have had an affair a long time ago. When you got the evidence, he came to pick you up. I knew it. Did he find the lawyer for you? How can a lawyer like him personally handle such a small case for you? When did you 2 get together? He was holding a bottle of wine, crying and cursing, and was carried away by security within a few minutes. When did you 2 get together? We got together in the afternoon on the day we got the divorce certificate. Adult relationships aren't as simple as just holding hands. After getting the certificate, Jack drove me away. His execution power is very strong, but he didn't go anywhere else. Instead, he had some emergency at the hospital. I was planning on waiting for him in the car, but he asked me to come with him. When we arrived at his workplace, there were many colleagues, and several female doctors looked at me with suspicion, mostly gossip. One female doctor asked, "Who is this?" I was about to say it's an old classmate, but Jack spoke first. "She is the girl I am currently pursuing. I don't have much experience in relationships. When I was with my ex-husband, it was just passing notes back and forth. I have never seen someone so open and straightforward like him, saying it in front of his colleagues. I've never seen that before." At that moment, I realized that words can nail people down. Once he said that, I felt like I was pinned to the wall by a big and thick nail, feeling shy and stiff. But of course, there was also joy in my heart. Inside the office, the eyes of those female doctors were about to pop out. After dealing with some documents, he reached out his hand towards me in front of them. "Let's go." I was pinned in place again at a loss. Suddenly, I felt he was truly devious. He had already said that. How could I possibly brush off his face? I allowed him to hold my hand. Once in the car, I felt completely at his mercy, embarrassed and wanting to regain some advantage. So I looked at him sideways with my eyes. "Jack, I just got divorced. Isn't it too soon for you to act like this?" But he said he actually liked me from before. I didn't believe it. Didn't you date a female PhD before? I asked. He nodded. Yes, she also works at the hospital in the laboratory. My mind buzzed. Wasn't his recent public display of affection towards me at the hospital already in that girl's ears? You don't need to worry about that. The past is the past. We broke up 2 years ago. She also has a boyfriend. I have a little bit of a shortage in terms of dating experiences, just one. I was at a loss, completely out of my element, and had already forgotten what I was about to do. I did really like you before. It's been 2 years, he said, taking out a notebook from our high school days. There were my diary entries in it, a total of 9. He folded it, easy to flip through. I deliberately checked, and yes, there was a 2-year span. The car was quiet. I sneakily glanced at him. He remained calm, his ears slightly reddening. Then he reached out his hand. I didn't hide. He held my hand. His ears turned even redder. With a click, he undid his seatbelt and leaned over. A hint of mint. I wanted to avoid it, but I couldn't. I still have some self-reflection to do. Women really need to broaden their horizons, see more views. Only then will they know the difference between different views. How should I put it? Talking about driving, his car was very expensive and big. It drove powerfully yet smoothly. He truly is a Prince Charming. Intelligent, everything about him is perfect. Not disappointed. Besides, he is not always so composed. At least every time he leans in for a kiss, he momentarily loses control. As for the rest of the story, let it unfold. Life is still long.